Poverty is that which makes people live inhumanly.
"36 years ago, this very day in South Africa, the bravery of children sparked a movement that would eventually lead to the end of apartheid. Today, young people are at the forefront of the Arab Spring, ending years of repression, dictatorship, corruption, and tyranny. All they wish for is a life of dignity." With the adoption of the United Nations Millennium Declaration in the year 2000, leaders from around the world committed to eradicating extreme poverty and hunger in the world's poorest countries by the year 2015, setting 8 Millennium Development Goals. One target was to reduce by half the proportion of people living in extreme poverty.
Out of the world's 7 billion people, the number in developing countries living below the poverty line fell from 1.8 billion to 1.4 billion between 1990 and 2005. The proportion of people living in extreme poverty in developing regions dropped by 19%. In that same period in sub-Saharan Africa, the poverty rates improved only slightly, dropping from 58% to 51%.
Most of the progress is taking place in East Asia, where poverty rates are expected to fall by 2015 to around 5% of the population in China and 24% in India.
Despite impressive economic growth, poverty still oppresses far too many people around the world, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, Western and Central Asia, and parts of Eastern Europe. 920 million people will still be living in extreme poverty, subsisting on less than $1.25 a day beyond 2015.
Children are the worst hit. 22,000 children die each day due to the effects of poverty. 1 in 4 children in developing countries are underweight or stunted. South Asia alone accounts for almost half of the world's undernourished children. The MDG target of reducing the proportion of underweight children by half will be missed by a staggering 30 million children in 2015 if current trends continue. Children's vulnerability to deprivation impacts their long-term mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual growth. And when children are harmed, the future is harmed. This is unacceptable.
今、世界の子どもたちが直面しているさまざまな問題の根底には貧困があります。貧困は経済のみならず、社会、文化、さらには人間の尊厳にも関わる複合的な問題です。
Child poverty starts with being born in a poor family, not being able to meet the basic needs. Child poverty is a child going to bed hungry and not having sufficient food to eat to grow properly.
Poverty is when a child comes to his mother and he wants to eat and the mother has to think what to give him because she doesn't have enough.
Poverty, it's injustice.
Not having a dignified life.
Poverty is lack of food on the table, lack of drinking water. Poverty is also the lack of opportunity for education.
Poverty can be because of inadequate resources, but it can also be due to inadequate consent.
Child poverty is a social phenomenon in which a child grows up lacking in material and emotional provisions that enable that child to grow up well physically and emotionally.
Poverty means abuse, degradation, humiliation. Children become outcasts in their own societies because of poverty.
Yaani umaskini ni ile hali ya mtu kuwa chini ya kipato chake au kifedha.
Umaskini kama vile mtu ana nyumba, ana yani pesa, na saa nyingine huwa watoto wanakosa yani sehemu ya kukaa, hata chakula, sehemu ya kulala.
People are acquiring more, living far beyond what they possibly require just simply to live. I look at our religious leaders, I look at our political leaders, and they are amassing huge palaces and homes, and they're forgetting that they have children to look after.
仏教では人間が持つ3つの煩悩の一つである貪欲が貧困の主要な原因であるとされます。人々の貪欲は現代資本主義における飽なき利潤追求となり、競争で敗れたものを敗者として切り捨てるグローバリズムは貧富の格差を生んできました。仏教が説く貪欲を取り、同じ人間同士として分かち合う精神は貧困問題の解決に資すると考えています。
Undeniably, corruption and poor governance, war and violence, and unequal distribution of resources cause poverty. These factors in turn have deep roots in the darker motives of the human heart: greed, ignorance, fear, and hatred.
Our three enemies are corruption, violence and war, and the maldistribution of human resources.
For more than 12 years, the GNRC has been engaging the world's diverse faith communities in dynamic work to improve children's well-being and defend their precious rights.
This fourth forum comes at a time when young people from around the world are demanding their rights to build meaningful lives. But poverty stands in their way, blocking their hopes and dreams.
From time immemorial, the vast spiritual, moral and social resources of religious communities have been at the forefront of efforts to care for the poor.
And the human welfare starts from the time the child is born, the time the child weds, the time the child dies, and prayers continue. In between child being born and the death, there is the welfare of mankind.
The historical social networks made up of mosques, churches, temples and shrines located in virtually every village, district and city are rich resources for the fight against child poverty. Combined with the efforts of multilateral institutions such as the World Bank, UNDP, UNICEF and others, together they can have a great impact to the reduction of child poverty.
Faith is a resource in development, and faith is a resource for people to work on the problems that they face on a day-to-day basis.
The time is now for faith-based, political and secular institutions to join forces to put an end to child poverty and enrich the lives of children everywhere.
If we are united, we can win and make the difference.
The GNRC was born at the first forum held in the year 2000 in Tokyo, Japan. In response to Reverend Takeyasu Miyamoto's call to put children back in the center of every faith, religious leaders from around the world recommitted themselves to taking a stand for children.
4 years later, in 2004, the second forum was held in Geneva, Switzerland. It led to the establishment of the Interfaith Council on Ethics, Education for Children and a joint project with UNICEF on the child in world's religions.
The third forum, held in Hiroshima, Japan in 2008, featured the global launch of the Learning to Live Together resource guide. The World Day of Prayer and Action for Children was also conceived during the third forum.
The GNRC seeks to accelerate mobilization of urgently needed resources to meet the MDG targets and to focus on sustainable development practices. The GNRC seeks to do so by going beyond conventional economic approaches to addressing poverty, realizing that economic development alone does not automatically alleviate poverty.
We are here at this forum to rediscover and re-engage our traditional and timeless resources for the fight against child poverty. Our discussions will go beyond conventional economic approaches in the search for answers to the challenge of poverty. We, as a faith communities, passionately plead with governments, plead with development agencies, the business community, and all people of goodwill to join us in a new partnership that will deliver powerful action to eradicate and eliminate child poverty.
When we knowingly fail, we betray the best of our religious traditions. We fail the children who are entrusted to our care, but withering away in poverty.
Find ways of working together now. Crucial that we work together for the life of our people.
Can we today at this forum declare our absolute commitment to the ethical imperative that no child lives in poverty? Reducing extreme forms of poverty is not only possible, but also morally mandatory. And that is, it should be done now.
When we as faith communities neglect to respond to absolute forms of poverty, we fail to live up to our values, teachings, and traditions.
Can we take action to match our words, our commitment, our pledge, our promise to children?
言うまでもなく、貧困問題は宗教者のみで解決できません。GNRC は宗教コミュニティがイニシアチブを取るものですが、変革に向けた具体的な行動には、世銀、IMF などの機関や政府の協力が不可欠です。GNRC は子どもに焦点を当てた新たな貢献を行う中で、宗教コミュニティとして従来の経済アプローチを超えた取り組みを打ち出したいと考えており、このフォーラムを機に世銀などの機関との間で今後の協力に向けた対話が始まることを期待しています。
We are guilty of many errors and faults, but our worst crime is abandoning the children, neglecting the fountain of life. Many things we need can wait. The child cannot. Right now is the time bones are being formed, blood is being made, and senses are being developed. To the child, we cannot answer tomorrow. The child's name is today.